And for now, I'm going to hand it over to Brian Kahn from Bloomberg to host this session. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today, and it's great to see such a great turnout for such an interesting event. So one thing that I am really excited about is it feels like we've seen, as a journalist, one thing that really excites me is it feels like every other day there's a new corporate climate buy for CDR. And yet it's still a relatively small number of purchases and a small number of tons removed. So today I want us to talk a little bit about what you all are thinking about when it comes to thinking about how to scale up demand, the roles that your companies play, or the roles that you can play in advising companies, and ultimately how CDR fits within a broader net zero plan. One of the things I've heard a lot today is this idea of reductions versus removal, and we've heard it from scientists, from various folks on the stage. I'd really like to hear how each of you is thinking about reductions versus removal for your company or for those you advise. So, Rachel, I just want to dive right in and turn it to you.
Yes, I'm Rachel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sweep, and Sweep it's data, SaaS data platform, and we are helping our customers actually to the corporates and financial institutions to reduce their carbon emissions in their business and their entire value chain. So we are working with customers in the early days, I would say, of their climate journey, because we are here to collect the data, to measure, and to help them to track their progress in terms of reductions. And of course, what I can tell you about reduction versus removal is that we absolutely have to do both at the same time. So my role is to make sure they are understanding that and put them in the safe environment where everything is precise, everything is auditable, so that from the emissions that they are, from the carbon that they are emitting to the actions they have to put in place, everything must be measurable, precise, and this is why we need technologies like carbon removal, DAC, which are super precise. But everything has to be done at the same time. So we are in an urgency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mischa, Swiss Re has been doing this kind of work for quite a while, so I'd be really curious to hear how you're thinking about it now.
Yeah, so my name is Mischa. I'm from Swiss Re. Thanks a lot for having all of us here doing the buyers panel. It's a very fundamental question that you have here to begin with. What's the importance for a company between avoidance and removals? I think the importance, A, is to understand the difference, and this is not a given. So there it needs a lot of communication by the CSR professionals within every company to explain what the difference is. We shouldn't also, name one better than the other necessarily. For us, it was important to say that carbon finance plays an important role in the international fight against climate action and how the private sector can engage. We said we've been supporting good climate reduction or carbon reduction projects since 2003. If we now just unplug that carbon finance from those projects, we saw during the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009 what happened. A lot of sunk costs. Those projects did not deliver any more mitigation outcome, and this is something that we should prevent. We should give a perspective to climate reduction, carbon reduction projects, that they need to find new financiers. Under the Paris Agreement, the ratcheting up mechanism means that there will be less and less outcomes to be sold from one country to another, or even to a private sector player. So the private sector needs to go towards removals, but that shouldn't happen from today to tomorrow, also in order not to create this impression of there is a hype or something. So Markus showed you the data. It's not a hype. Most of the money still goes to the conventional way of doing compensation measures. What Swiss Re did, we said we're going to basically just announce today that we phase out the use of avoidance credits, and we ramp up at the same time the use of removal credits, so that by 2030 we go from 100% avoidance in 2020 to 100% removals in 2030. That gives a perspective to the market. It shows every player what we're about to do. We also gave a price tag, which is important. It started at 100, where we can then, buy the mix of avoidance and removals, so that we land at $100 per ton. But that price increases over time to $200 per ton, and everybody knows what our willingness to pay will be in 2030.
Thanks. And let's see, Michael, how is Mammoth thinking about carbon removal
Yeah.
versus reduction?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm obviously not an expert in carbon removal as I'm running the supply chain at Mammut, but it's fantastic to see the passion and the energy here in the room. And it's as well a privilege to present more or less the work of the team, our corporate responsibility team and all employees who have done this. And I guess for us it is important to have a clear strategy, and also having discussed and also look to the right-hand side to Mischa and to Swiss Re. So our climate strategy is we want to do our best and then remove the rest. So we also take a conscious decision that we don't want to work with avoidance credits, but we do everything that we can to reduce our carbon footprint, and there will be some residual that we are going to remove, and this is where we started to look around and find ways how we could do that. And obviously for us, corporate responsibility is a hygiene factor. It's not a differentiator in the outdoor market. As you know, there are many players in the market, and also our customers are very close to that, which is fantastic because they love the mountains as we do. But there's something that we can do, and we also want to be the forerunners and also join the fantastic teams that are out there who are doing that. And being on the front line is for us some sort of an obligation. As also a technical mountain brand, we also want to be close to the technical removal technology and also present this to our customers as a solution, and also have some sort of bit of a, I would say, educational or at least an information obligation on the market when customers come in and ask, okay, what is it? And what do you do about it, so that we can also answer that and advocate and find more supporters to that movement that we see right now.
Excellent. Well, so I actually want to stay on that for a second. I'm very curious, do you view yourself, you're a very customer-facing company, and so what role do you see your company playing as far as making carbon removal more understandable to the public in general?
I think it is just a starting point, and as we heard it today from Howard, from Rich, and as well from Marcus, which I liked a lot, is some sort of, it is about the words and how to transport the message. And therefore it is really difficult to get closer to the customers and educate, but not being an evangelist and say, okay, this is what you have to do, but get some sort of feedback from the market. What we see as well when we work with our retailers, that it is an obligation, if you want to be listed with certain retailers, that you have to fulfill certain requirements. And that's the one thing. And the other thing is that has to be done. We want to do the right thing, and therefore this is an important, let's say, part of the entire strategy, that we also take this removal into our overall portfolio of what we do.
Great. So Mischa, your company is in a bit of a different place in terms of how you can influence the carbon removal market. And I'm really curious to know, I understand that there are maybe 3 pillars and 3 ways you're looking at. I wonder if you can tell us a little about those 3 pillars of how you're thinking about carbon removal at Swiss Re.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a bit a mantra that I'm trying to convey. It's a theory of change where I believe. So Brand before talked about 3 levers of the private sector, and she walked us through the value chain essentially. I think you can go higher, one level up. The 3 levers I would like to talk about is the private sector can do 3 things. You can de-risk clean technologies, you can finance it, and you can buy that stuff. The 4th would be advocacy, but I leave that to others. And if you look at that, the insurance industry is really perfectly positioned, if not the most perfectly positioned industry, to do all 3 in parallel. Because yes, we can finance, we're an institutional investor, we're going to invest those premia that we earn until the claims come in, right? We can buy, we have the necessary coins, I dare to say that out loud as a member of the financial industry. But we can, on top, really offer those risk transfer solutions, 2 upcoming solutions, in order to make more capital from different places flow where we think the climate journey is supposed to go. So these are the 3 pillars that you mentioned, and very, very thankful for letting me basically play this theory of change. It's not that easy as it sounds, I can tell you. So it's much easier to buy things, to convince somebody to buy the right thing. That's how we started. It was possible to convince our asset management to invest, to really do the due diligence. We don't have a venture mandate, but they did the due diligence. We placed an equity ticket to Climeworks. And now I'm working on the 3rd one, how to ensure that. So I'm very grateful that we had Natalia here on stage. It probably takes the smaller ones in order to do the pioneering work before the big conventional casualty underwriters are really getting into the space.
Thanks for sharing the 3 pillars. I hope they catch on with everyone here. Rachel, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little about the companies you work with. How do you make sure that companies see the ROI when it comes to really thinking about carbon removal as being a core part of their climate planning?
They are not there yet, definitely. The customer base I have are already, kind of the level of maturity is absolutely different. You can take, in Europe, for example, same industry, same size of two corporations, of same industry, same size, and you will see the maturity regarding the climate journey that can be absolutely different. So how I see things coming, so it will be my role from my software, to mask the complexity of showing them the ROI that they can get, out of it. But where I strongly believe in all those dots who are being connected at the moment is that in Europe, you all heard about the CSRD coming, for companies, and it means that just measuring, and understanding the carbon footprint will be mandatory, under regulatory constraints, and this is good because once you have it, it means that. And there is much more coming with the CSRD. There is also, you will have to show, a CapEx, you will have to show initiatives of reductions, etc. And hopefully, this is when that kind of software, that I've been building, will be able to show those customers, okay, and now that you're here, we are masking the complexity as well to direct you to the Climeworks, to what you have to do from a removal standpoint. So. And hopefully, and all the policymakers will understand that today, hopefully we will need that CSRD as well, for removal coming. But yes, I think that, that connecting the dots to capture, the attention of our customers when it comes to helping them to reduce and make sure that they are compliant and that they are transitioning to a low carbon economy. I hope that we will make this that captivity mode, okay, to show them how important it is to remove and to go even beyond that, because as you mentioned, they are not all educated about it. It's super difficult to understand, what has to be done, reduction versus, there is too much of a reduction versus removal, while actually everything has to be done at the same time. So hopefully my role, and other platforms like mine, are, we have to mask that complexity to make sure that it's thrown to that next step, and I'm working for you guys.
And do either of you deal with this internally at your companies? I mean, it sounds like they're thinking, certainly Swiss Re and Repmann are thinking very much about climate and how to sort of master the reduction versus the removal sort of side of things. But I'm curious, what is it like to have to communicate within your company and make sure that you're making those steps happen?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start, and what I'm wearing today is our trail running collection, and that's the first fully decarbonized collection worldwide. And the amount is 250 tons per year. And the total, what we have, is more than 50,000 tons. That puts it a bit into perspective. And obviously what we do internally is that whatever is important is starting with the reduction first. So we have set the programs in place that we get from 50,000 tons, although we want to grow economically, down to 25,000. And then if we take that into perspective, then removing 10%, 20%, what we heard before, is just a starting point. And we wanted to show, first of all, to our colleagues internally, but also to the world, that it's possible, and what it would mean, that it's really tiny at the start, but it can become much, much bigger. But we need the capacity on the one hand side, but there's much, much more to do in terms of the reduction first, before we then enter this terrain. And balancing that out, I guess that's also some sort of the difficulty that we have. And thanks for that message, Rich, earlier. It is to do both. So on the one hand side, it is full focus on reduction, and then on the other hand side, keeping investing into the removal. And it's quite, as a company, important to understand, okay, where do I put my dollars in? Yeah. So in this project or in that project, and to find the right balance, this is what we try to also communicate and educate and win, first of all, our employees, but as well then obviously the consumers and clients out there.
Mischa, I'm curious, like with Swiss Re, it's really interesting because I know, you say you're carbon neutral due to the offsets, and you're in the process of, the goal is to phase them out, to make the cross from offsets to removal. And that comes with a price premium. So is there any consideration of that? And how do you sort of, I guess, how do you get buy-in internally to actually make that switch, given that you could buy cheap offsets, right? But buy and removal is a serious investment.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we did really not want to go through the annual budget process to go every year and say we're going to need that in order to do something on climate. We felt that an internal carbon price is the perfect thing to do for us because we can have that as a policy over 10 years, which then we communicate and everybody learns about and we get a lot of press, and then it's hard to undo that, even if you have a complete change in management. So it's kind of protecting our ability to raise the funds that are necessary to do this switch. Indeed, it's a big cost increase, and there could have been a strategy to go from high-quality avoidance credits to low-quality removals. Almost no difference there, $20-ish per ton. But we knew that it's not going to happen. Looking at the market, the first full-fledged value chain demonstrated CDR from DAX was by Climeworks in Iceland, and that was definitely way more than $20, as everybody in here probably knows. So we needed to find a way how to finance that up front. And it wasn't possible to go from 0 to 100% right away. We need to have some kind of a balance. So the way how we tackled this question was, how much are we willing to pay today? $100 was what the UN Global Compact is calling for since 2016 or so. Nobody did it as a real internal carbon price. That means real, you collect it and you spend it, balance sheet impacting. So $100 was a good communicatable starting point, but we knew that this is not even enough in 2030 in order to then be at 100% removals at the quality that we had envisioned. And eventually, we are just hoping that that market is going to develop thanks to our own early engagement and market signal, that the $200 will be enough. I completely share the concerns that this is often an overpromise, and it will be tough to get there. But I'm also not concerned that we don't fulfill that pledge, because we did everything on the way there to send our market signal. If the market is heavily short in 2029 still, at least we've done our best to kind of prevent this situation, but we might be then able to stretch the target and say, well, if the market isn't delivering today, we can do more, we can do more impactful buying, we can do more advocacy in order to get others into these long-term offtake agreements. But I'm not so worried that this is not going to happen. I can't tell now. Who can tell the future?
Rich, I noticed you see. Go ahead.
No, what we've seen recently is that we are trying to productize the whole climate journey, okay, within SWIP. Of course, we were starting with the net zero, etc. And what we've seen recently is that we've been switching that semantic about net zero, and it's working far better with our customers when we are presenting them and talking to them about contribution, instead of that net zero battle. Of course, it's science-based, we have to. But let's be pragmatic, let's start. And when you are talking to them about, okay, the contribution, how does it start? It starts with a carbon, internal carbon tax. Let's say that, okay, so you are starting to measure the internal carbon tax. Okay, what does it mean if you are benchmarking it with the ETS that you have close to in your country or else, okay, let's say that you have 2 million in terms of budget that you have to invest, or that you have to, where you have to buy carbon with. They understand that having that, when you are talking about contribution, and when they understand that they can buy with this budget the kind of projects that they can buy from, the kind of projects that are important for them, or that are located in the countries where they are operating in. When it's a very technical tech company, okay, they like to invest into removal or else. The story and the engagement of all the stakeholders within the company is happening right now, and it's already engaging money, etc. Instead of talking about the whole net zero, and the more commitment they are doing, having that very clear strategy, okay, the more they are also breaking free of pricing volatility. the more they are getting rid of very bad carbon quality projects. Sorry for my vocabulary. But so the more we are engaging our customers and productizing that contribution instead of right now, that net zero approach, it's, at the end of the day, it's quite the same, right? But there is this urgency and this everything is going faster, because they understand that, okay, they will never manage right now to, be net zero because they are emitting millions and millions. We are working with large emitters, dozens of millions of CO2, tons of CO2. But at least they are starting right now, and they are not forcing themselves to buy 2 euros per tons of CO2, from very bad projects. So maybe there is also a reflections to have about what we are also asking companies and the semantic we are all using to start now.
Michael, I see you. I'm curious to know, you've made the purchase of some CO2 removal already. Is this something that you view as I guess internally, do you see a route to increase that kind of purchase going forward, or is that something that do you have to still get other buy-in for?
Yeah. So I guess for us, the tipping point was to integrate our climate strategy into the corporate strategy, and also being owned by a private equity company, everything we do is to generate company value. So therefore, following as well this path was important to understand, okay, how can we increase the company value over the next couple of years? And can we reserve a certain portion of our net sales for exactly preparing for projects, investments into credits, so that we have a portfolio that we can deal with? And that's the path that we have taken, because as well from our investor side, it was very clear that corporate responsibility or sustainability needs to be part of the strategy. It's part of the company equity at the end. And therefore, we have now the position that we can choose, like Rachel said, we can decide in which project we are going to invest. Do we support a supplier who is building a renewable energy-based plant in Vietnam, for instance, or do we buy more credits together with Climeworks, for instance? So this is the balance of the portfolio that we now have, and it's also our obligation to work towards these funds and see where best we put in our money, so the investment, because at one point in time, I think it's also clear that there will be taxes or there will be some sort of payments for the carbon emissions that we have, and to be best positioned, this is the path that we take now in the next years. And then increasing the amount, obviously, is one strategy, because also we want to be with the first ones. If we now invest, I think we get a better return, and this is what we see right now. The cost will go down. And then if we can increase, we would like then to reach that level, obviously, to remove the rest as part of our 2030 target. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I want to open this to questions in a second, but I do have one last question to ask each of you, which I'm very curious to know if, let's transport ourselves to 2030. We're looking back at the, 7 years in between. I'm really curious, what's one thing that your company or the companies you're advising will have done to help make sure that the market has grown for carbon removal? No big deal.
How are we?
How have you helped grow the market for carbon removal if you're looking back from 2030?
Yeah. It's my responsibility to make sure that our customers understand that they have to invest in a mix of technologies, in a mix of solutions. It's not my role is not just to help them to make a carbon footprint and set up a trajectory of reductions. My role is to make sure that I am interfacing myself, Sweep, that I am part of that tech stack that is interconnecting all the solutions out there, that are interconnecting the Climeworks, the DAC technologies, the MRV guys, beyond that. So we must promote all the solutions out there, and technology is helping, digital is helping. So I'm doing my part on the digital side.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say we thought a lot in 2020 how to do that, so how to be most impactful by 2030. Hence, we set everything that I just talked about into place and putting us in a position to strike these long-term offtake agreements. And then really go out and take the time to strike the world's first, I'd argue, at a reasonable price, 10 million over 10 years. Financial sector player, 10 million is not that much, I know, but it's a good signal towards outside. It creates a role model, right, like Rich talked about, where others can say, hey, I want to have the same contract like Swiss Re did. So that helped a lot. So I could now sit back and do nothing. I said I'm working on the insurance piece, which is a hard nut to crack anyway. But all we can do is try to replicate or talk about these things that we've done, because we really believe in it. It needs this long-term offtake agreement. It needs future revenue. Right. The problem is the lack of buyers. Fully agree with Julio here. We believe that, looking at CDR.fi1, it looks like you have only 90 suppliers and then 150 buyers. Imbalance, right? No, it's for the next 10x upscaling step, you need to fill up this capacity big time before we can talk about the shortage of supply. And go out and talk about it. That's what we're going to do over the next 7 years and strike more of these contracts on the way. So we have more and more budget to do that. At the same time, that increase in carbon price motivates us to reduce the emissions in the first place. So we kind of created a marginal abatement cost in 2030. What we can reduce at $200 per ton, we have to reduce, otherwise it would make economically no sense. So that gives also a good incentive to reduce in the first place. So let's sit and wait whether everything plays out how we are supposed to, and talk about it so that more can use that as a role model.
Yeah, hopefully the digital will give visibility to what's already working. This is crazy. In 2023, it's already working. That's cool, right? We need to give visibility to that and fund.
Yeah, I think you said it all. We started with this collection where we did some sort of a buzz around it and also try to explain a bit what carbon removal is. And it is walking the talk. So being part of it, being part of the journey, and then being in the community. We have a broad network of many suppliers that we work with. We have our retailers, we have our peers in the outdoor market. We have these forums. We have hundreds of people here, thousands hopefully on the screen. So please hear us and join us in this movement. And I think there's nothing better than just doing it and talk about it. And this is what we do.
I like that. It sounds like the big theme across all of you is education, and more education for everyone. Visibility. I love it. Well, I'd love to welcome Hannah back on stage and see if we have any questions out in the audience.
Indeed, Brian. Maybe we can open the floor, first of all, if there are any questions in the room for our panelists so far. Please just raise your hand. Well, if there is nothing in the room, I certainly have some from our online audience today. And maybe I think this is something that you've kind of hinted at throughout the course of this discussion, but I think maybe concretely from a corporate perspective, what are the most important things to keep in mind when you're about to go into CDR purchases? What would your advice be, each of you, to somebody sitting in the audience who maybe hasn't made that step yet, but is inspired after today?
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I take this one. So the first thing is obviously you need to be clear about your strategy, so what you would like to achieve and how you would like to do that, and then you need to find partners you trust with, either from authorities or, let's say, private organizations that are doing it, and then create the network and just approach them. We had the discussion about MRV earlier today, so that you get also some sort of security that what you're doing is the right thing. It's backed up by legislation and by authorities and rules. I think that's important. And then start and learn.
And I mean, I think that's exactly what you were saying earlier. The most important thing is just to start. But Mischa, come on, you've been in this business for a long time. You must have seen quite a lot of different approaches. You must have seen lots of different challenges along the way.
So secure top management buy-in, otherwise you can't do anything. So this is at the beginning. What we did, we took basically our CEO back then to the Hinwil Climeworks plant, and she coming from Stuttgart, from the automotive, for her it was like, wow, this is, so she saw something and she could relate to it, so that helped a lot. Then secure the funding, so that's absolutely key. You will never be able to enter long-term into any market if you don't have that funding secured. these are the two most fundamental things. Afterwards, there is enough out there already to engage. You can engage strategically with preferred partners because you really want to access something, learn from it, get some, for us, risk engineering experience, get the asset managers to the same table to learn how to invest in those upcoming things. This is key. You can also join one of the aggregation exercises that are ongoing, Next Gen, Frontier. If you don't want to have this work of entering a long-term contract, these are 50 pages documents by now, probably 100. But they used to be 2 pages. I have money, I pay you that price, thanks. And that really, you know, we are at another level of scrutiny today. If you join one of the aggregation clubs, much easier life. Or you go over the counter to a marketplace like Puro, who is well established by now, and have an even easier shot at entering that market. But just send that signal that you are willing to engage early to make your net zero target, your contribution claim, easier for yourself, but also for the whole world.
Thank you very much. Rachel, just maybe if we can develop this question a little bit further, what would your advice be to companies, you know, from their perspective? What are the most important things to consider when embarking on their journey? What are some of the things that you recommend to companies to keep in mind?
I'm a data person, I'm a geeky person, so I will, you know, go back to the data. But yeah, the auditability in this world where there is so much, you know, greenwashing. Just open the books. Open the books when you are measuring and assessing your carbon emissions, but open the books about what you are doing to reduce it and to remove it. So my point is really to, you know, send all the signals to companies about don't mess with that. Make sure that you are in the safest environment. Pick up the right technologies to be auditable, because at the end of the day, your customers will ask you to open the books. And it's the same for the technologies, for the removal technologies that they are picking. Make sure that you are investing in technologies that are helping you to open the books to show that what you are doing is helping. Okay? No, but it's simple at the end of the day. It's about opening the books from end to end. We are in a world where you can't not do that. Okay? Customers are here to tell you, as individuals are here to, and companies are under threat. Yeah, and if they want to become forever companies, they have to understand that they have to open the books from end to end. So, ouais, voilà, precision and celebration of technologies who are precise, and voilà, showing where the world is heading, where we are standing currently, where we are going if we are not investing that amount of money by X years. Yeah, we are going into the wall, so let's do more. We have the figures for that. Donc, voilà.
Thank you all so much indeed. Michael, Mischa, Brian, and Rachel, thank you.
Merci.
Please take a seat in back of the audience. Thank you. Thank you very much.